excited we get to talk to Jillian Eaton and Sherry Ewing this week, and I haven't talked to either of you in ages and ages. So this is
I know.
a good
It's been a
thing.
while.
So Jillian's book comes out first this week, and it's The Duchess Takes a Lover, which is a Dragonblade Flame book, and I'm anxiously waiting for this one.
Yes.
Can you tell us about the book in the series?
Yeah, so it's the first book in a brand new series, which right now is planned to be a trilogy. As Evelyn said, it's called The Duchess Takes a Lover, and the series name is Ladies of Seduction, and it is part of Dragonblade's Flame line, the first book that I'm writing for this line. And kind of the overarching theme of this series, and I've explored this in previous books, but not for a while, is it finds all of our couples already married, and they were happy at the time that they married. And now some time has passed, in this case, 18 months, so about a year and a half, and they are no longer happy. So it kind of explores that niche of refinding love or finding true love for the first time after marriage, which is where more traditional books kind of end. They fall in love and then they get married or they get engaged and then the story's over. So this book starts with our hero, Mara, or heroine Mara, and she thought she was very happy and in love when she got married. It was a whirlwind courtship, which is kind of explored during flashbooks throughout the book. And her wedding night does not go well at all. And her husband, the Duke, kind of dumps her at his country estate, which is what he had planned to do all along, and visits maybe 3 times. And she puts up with it. She's very polite. She's very demure, which are some of the reasons that he chose her to be his bride. And she, kind of out of character, decides that she's lonely and she's finally going to take something for herself. And she decides that that thing is going to be a lover in London. And that kind of sets off our series of events.
That is not a subtle step. That is a big step.
Yes. Yes. So.
Yeah. I love this. I love the setup for the series. I love getting to see relationships after they're already established, and you get this like extra level of intimacy that is, you know, because you don't have to do all the just beginning to find you kind of thing.
Right.
Like,
yeah, this book, it kind of has a little bit of both. So you meet them where they are, which is estranged, and her making this great big bold step in the very first chapter. And then you kind of find out how they got to be where they are throughout, in flashbooks and flashbacks set throughout the book. So you do get their first meet, you get their first kiss, you get their first couple of encounters, and kind of little pieces here and there that lead you to figure out or why they have come to this point of breakdown in their marriage. And then the book kind of goes forward from there to see what happens.
I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that she doesn't actually succeed in taking a lover that is outside of her marriage.
She does not. No, there is no cheating, no cliffhangers. It's a happily ever after at the end. It's not really a spoiler. Her definition of a lover, since her marriage night was so terrible, is slightly different than the typical sense. So what she's looking for is, in her mind, not really a lover, even though that's what society and her husband thinks that she is looking for. So,
fantastic!
Yes, no cheating.
There's so much good stuff there. I can't wait.
Yeah.
And how many other books? I know you said.
There's going to be 3. So I'm writing the second book right now. And that the lady courts a Marquise. I heard the correct way to pronounce it in Bridgerton. No, I've already forgotten.
Because I do it wrong every time.
I know. They said it, and I was like, oh, that and Viscount. I always said Viscount. But yes, so the second book is about her sister, who's a pretty big character in book 1. And then the third book, the heroine's a little bit of a mystery. So I'm not going to reveal that quite yet. But yeah.
But we'll get to see a little bit of the first couple in the second book, perhaps.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. I love it when they're related and we get to, get glimpses of them afterwards too.
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Well, there's so much to look forward to with this one.
Yeah.
And then Sherry, you've got a brand new series. It's like the week of brand new series. Can you've got a brand new series this week too. It's Night of Darkness, and it's book 1 in the Knights of Anarchy.
Yes, and this series has been in the making for like several years. I actually pitched it to an editor at Dragonblade during a conference several years ago, and then he said, "Yes, send me the first few chapters," and I started writing the first book, and then life hit me, and everything just went downhill from there. So it took me quite a while to like finish the first book and get at least partway into the second before I actually pitched it to Dragonblade. So Night of Darkness is the first book, and the story is going to be, there's going to be 4 stories in the series.
Oh, fun.
The first 3 books are all brothers, the Norwood brothers, and then the 4th book is another friend of theirs that's like a brother, so it's like a brother of the heart. And the hero in Night of Darkness is Weimar Norwood, and the beginning scenes of him is he and his brothers and this other knight Richard are on their way to the Battle of Lincoln. Everything takes place during the Anarchy, where Empress Matilda is fighting against King Stephen, and she's trying to be crowned Queen of England, and so they are on their way to the Battle of Lincoln, and that's where everything starts. And the heroine actually sees him for the first time as they are stopping at this inn on a cold, rainy, dark night, nasty night.
Of course it is.
Of course it is. It has to be. And he walks in, and she is actually disguised, and it's no secret because at the very beginning, everybody, it's an opening scene with her. It's Caradwyn. She is disguised as a knight, and she's just trying to prove her worth to the Empress. She left her home, and she is trying to prove her worth to her father. She's an only child. There is no son. So she's trying to prove her worth, that she can protect those she loves. And she takes some of her men and throws herself into the Empress's cause. And so Weimar and Caradwyn actually meet at the inn when another knight is accosting her, who actually knows her identity. So I've got villains, I've got plot twists. I actually loved how Weimar's story turned out. I just loved writing it. It's full of lots of plot twists that I didn't even see coming when I started to write it. And so Weimar is the oldest brother, and then we'll see the other 2 brothers. I'm actually finishing the 3rd book right now. I've got maybe another chapter and enough epilogue to finish, and so I'll be finishing. Reynard is the 3rd brother. The 2nd book is with Theobald, so those are the 3 Norwood brothers, and then Richard is the other knight that's like a brother to them, and he'll be the 4th book in the series.
Oh, fun. I like families that are connected, and we hardly ever get a cross-dressing night, so that's
yes, that sounds amazing.
Yeah,
it's lots of fun.
Yeah, lots of fun.
Well, awesome. Well, you said something about the book taking you in directions that you didn't realize you were going to go. I thought since we had a little bit of time left that we could talk about, and since we haven't had a chance to talk much before, we could talk a little bit about your writing styles and whether you know ahead of time where the story is going to go. Do you plot things out, or do you just sit down and start writing, or how does it work for both of you?
So for me, I have no idea. I know that it has to be a hero and a heroine. It doesn't have to be, but for this series it is. And they fall in love at the end. And I knew at the beginning, my overarching theme for this series again was going to be love after marriage. And that was about all I had. And I just start writing from the beginning and kind of develop my characters as I go. And sometimes I have a vague idea of what I want them to do as I go along, but I've tried outlining, I've tried notebooks, I've tried figuring out how many chapters I'm going to have, and that just doesn't work for me. It's very character driven. I don't always agree with my characters. They make very lots of decisions I wouldn't do necessarily. And this book in particular, Mara just ended up, there were a lot of times where I wanted her to be stronger and to stand up for herself, which she eventually learns how to do throughout the course of the book. But it's very character driven for me, to the point where like I said, I disagree with my characters a lot of the times on what they do, but it just somehow always comes together and works at the end.
Do you find it changes for you over the course of the book? Like when you start out writing about them, that there are things that you can't write because you don't know them quite well enough yet? Or is
that's a good question. So I very rarely, and my editors can attest to this, although it probably makes them want to pull their hair out. So I don't really go back and re-edit. Kind of my first version of the story is the version of the story. And of course I kind of take things in and out as is suggested. But the characters really just kind of reveal themselves in layers. And I think compared to other authors that I know, I'm a much slower writer. And I think that's probably one of the reasons, because I'm not just flying through. I'm like very much discovering and unpeeling and figuring them out as I go along. And that takes a while. Like today I was working on Mara's sister Kitty, who is quite unlikable in book 1. And even as I'm writing her, I know, I'm like, you're going to have to be the heroine of book 2. Like, you need to shape up. And she's like, absolutely not. So that's definitely been more so. It puts me kind of like in interesting realms sometimes, figuring out, what exactly I'm going to do, because I don't have everything written out ahead of time. Like chapter 5, the character becomes nicer and falls out of a carriage and the hero picks her up and everyone, is happy for a while. Like that unfortunately does not happen. So.
What about you, Sherry?
I can understand like all of that. I understand all of it, because I am exactly the same way. I am not a plotter. I completely write by the seat of my pants. I've always been that way. I will have an idea of where I'm going.
Right.
I'll have an idea of what's going to happen in the middle. I have an idea of what's going to happen at the end, but how I get there, it's all my characters, and they always tend to start jabbering away at me to give me their ideas or their opinions in the middle of the night when I'm supposed to be sleeping.
Oh no, that's not it at all.
I think they forget that I do have a day job. So I have a day job that I have to go spend 8 hours at before I can come home and put the author hat on. So, that is and I'm an IT specialist during the day. So that's a lot of computer time, because I got to get my writing in at night once I get home. Totally character driven, but I have to admit that some of my best plot twists that I do not see coming happens when I'm driving down the road, commuting to or from work, got some tune on that I always have a song or a few songs that I listen to inspire me to write. And so I'll just have that on repeat as I'm driving into the office. And most of my best plot twists happen when I'm driving in the car. Yeah. And I'll look up and I'm like, I'm home. How did I get home? It's scary sometimes.
Yeah, I love that. I love that when your body has something to do, so your mind can go wandering. Yes. Kind of thing. Yep. I think that's really helpful.
Yeah, and they'll let me know when I've got it wrong, because I was actually just writing a chapter just a few days ago, and I thought that's where my characters were going, and I started writing. I got about, a page and a half in, and it just came to a grounding halt. They left me. They went to parts unknown. They let it be known that that is not how their story was not working. Yeah, it's not working, and I had to rewrite it all.
Yeah,
that's so hard. And I know both
it is hard.
Because I know both of you balance very full lives in addition to being authors. Is there do you have a specific ritual that you follow to get yourself into the story, or is there something that you do to a specific time, or how do you structure your writing day?
So for me, I have 3 young boys, And my husband, who works from home but travels quite a bit. And we also live on a working horse farm and have 10 horses and lessons and boarding. And I'm also an adjunct professor at a local university. So for my writing time is very sacred. And I try to do it first thing in the morning. So I go out, wake up, feed the horses, come back, get the kids off to school. And I generally have about 2 hours, about 5 days a week. And I drink way too much coffee. I have to have coffee when I write. I have to. And that's when I write in the morning, when I have my best, freshest ideas. A lot of times, like Sherry was saying, for me, it's not necessarily music, but in the afternoon when I'm cleaning the stalls, I'll kind of let my mind just relax and think. I do get ideas at night, and I still tell myself 12 years in that I will wake up and write them down. And then I don't. And then I'm like, oh, don't worry. Just, you'll remember it. You'll remember it word for word, and has yet to happen. I haven't learned my lesson. But yeah, so in the morning with coffee during those 2 hours, I try sometimes to write at night, but usually I'm too tired. I can't write with a lot of distractions. I can't have music on. The door has to be quiet. Kids have to be out of the house. I can't I've tried going to cafes and being a cafe writer, but just in my office with coffee in the morning is when I write and what works.
Do you have a specific word count you try to hit every day, or do you just sit down and
I do. I have an entire notebook full of missed word counts, yes, that I optimistically write. I just did another one on Monday. I was calculating out, I was like, this book needs to be done by the end of the month. So if I write 1,800 words, based on what I have done, I'm like, oh, easy peasy. And it never happens.
Oh, it always seems so easy when you're making the list.
Yes.
I saw somebody who gave herself stickers when she hit her word count. I thought, well, that is kind of motivating, because you get to use stickers for.
That's a good idea. I will say, I generally get like 3 or 4 chapters in. So the first quarter of the book is relatively quick and easy for me to write. The middle is a slog. Hopefully I don't think it reads like it is, but it is to write. And then typically the last quarter of the book, I just fly through.
What about you, Sherry? Do you have a specific daily word count you try to hit?
Well, I used to do like NaNoWriMo. So that was always like Jillian mentioned, at least 1,800 words to make that 50,000 word count in 1 month. So I try to kind of stick with that. But, some days you just, you think you've written so much, and then you go back and I'm like, really? That's only 700 words? You've got to be kidding me. I don't have much left to give anymore. So, I try I try to do about 15 to 1,800 a day. Some days I just get home from the office and it's like, nope, it's not happening today. And then you've got to make that up. And then if you don't do that, you've got to write every day. I find that if I don't, even if it's just a little bit, that it's harder for me to get back into the story. And it's harder for me to pick up wherever it is that I left off. I have a bad habit of, okay, I haven't written for 3 days. I really got to get back into the story. And then I go back a chapter or two, and then I start fussing with it when I shouldn't fuss with it and just move forward, because I can fuss with it later. So that's kind of a bad habit of mine, to just try and start to fix things that I know is not working in that first draft, but I got to let that go and keep moving on. So.
And you're usually an evening writer?
I'm usually an evening writer, during the week, just because I've got the day job. So, but the weekends, like Jillian mentioned, first thing in the morning, that's when I have to hit. If I let anything, after I get that cup of coffee, if I let anything else distract me, then I'm done. So I try and get that word count in first thing in the morning, and then I can do the rest of my day, whatever I have planned. So, yeah. I like the weekends.
Yeah.
That's to balance. Well, you both write very different time periods. I was wondering, is there something you do as far as researching? Do you limit that to the beginning, or do you let yourself stray while you're going through, or is there, how do you handle researching your time periods? in addition to the writing?
That's another good question. So this series takes place in the Regency era, which I would say 90%. That's kind of the era I've written in over the past 12 years. So not that I know everything, absolutely not, but it's an era I feel very comfortable with. I remember for this book specifically, I had to do some research on dances again, which I thought I had nailed down, and my editor took me to task and showed me that I actually did not, which was for the good. So fleshed out a whole scene and made it much more realistic. And because this book in particular hinges so much on a timeline, we kind of delved into the year that it takes place and what really happens over those 12 months in terms of political events and social events, and kind of pulled from those to bring some realistic happenings to the story. My last series with Dragonblade took place during the Victorian era, Perks of Being an Heiress, which I'd never written before in that era. So that was a whole dive into all new fashion, the political scene, inventions, the beginning of women's suffrage. So that was definitely very much more research heavy than this series has been.
What about you, Sherry?
Yeah, well, this series in particular is for me far more. There was more research that I needed to do than any of the other books that I've written. I have written 2 books with Wolfbane with Catherine Levesque's DeWolf series, and so I had those 2 books, and so that whole world building was already established, so I didn't really have to do too much research on that. I also do write Regency stories, and so I've also done I have a second book coming out. I think it's in April, of The Lion's Den, and I had a lot of fun writing that, so I didn't really necessarily have to do a lot of research for that. But the anarchy, the time period that I chose, don't ask me why I chose it. I have no idea of the particular time frame that I chose. I was not all that familiar with, and when I wrote Weimar's story, I didn't really have a hard time with the research that I needed to find. But when I got to Theobald's story, um, I was having such a hard time of trying to figure out where the Empress went from point A to point B, how she got there, and there was nothing. I couldn't find anything online. And so now this little book has become my friend with little stickers and everything, because it was the only book that I could find that kind of gave me any kind of a detail to, so I could have my characters going in the right direction and getting to where they needed to go. So I've been using it for Reynard's story. I'm sure I will use it for Richard's story. So this one in particular, I really had to do a lot of work on. The stories are better for it, so that's good.
Well, and I love that as somebody who really likes the idea of history but was terrible at it at school. I like knowing that I can count on you all to tell me the truth of something, so that if I read it, I can go along in the journey, and I'll know that they're actually, the knights are going in the right direction, and the dancing's supposed to work.
Yeah. Well, I always like to also put a little, like, especially when something is so history oriented, a little author note at the back of the book too, so that the reader can have some, this actually happened, and this part I used a little creative license with. So 1141, 1142, that there's not a lot to go on in some cases.
It's a thereabouts. So.
Yeah.
So did you both grow up reading historical romance? Is that where you started, or did you come to it later?
So I grew up reading it. I think I started, my mom had an entire bin of historical romance books. Like, we're talking like the old Joanna Lindsay's, like original covers from the 1980s, Kathleen E. Woodywis, like the whole spiel. And I found those, I think, when I was like 11 or 12. I was pretty young, but I was always a voracious reader. And I tore through them. I distinctly remember, though, I think I was in high school, and my friend said, well, have you read Judith McNaught? And I said, no, I've never heard of her. And we went to the bookstore, and I got Something Wonderful. by Judith McNaught, which was very distinctly for me like my first Regency. And I think up until then, Regency period hadn't necessarily been explored. It wasn't its own really genre like it is now almost. And I just absolutely fell in love with it. And I always kind of dabbled in writing just here and there, never thinking I'd be able to make a career out of it. But when I did start taking my writing a little more seriously and trying to get published, I knew that it was always from the beginning in historical romance and in the Regency era. And since then I branched out a little bit forward and a little bit backward, but really stuck kind of right where I like to read. And since then, Judith McNaught, Lisa Kleypas, all my favorites. Julia Quinn, of course. So, yeah.
What about you, Sherry?
Yeah, same. I actually I used to go into my grandmother's room and she would have a whole stack of Harlequin books.
Mm-hmm.
And not that I didn't necessarily read those, but she's the one that got me into reading historical romance. And Kathleen E. Woodowith's Flame in the Flower was the first book that I ever read until I found Jude Devereaux and A Knight of Shining Armor, which was my first time travel, which just started the whole love of time travel. And if someone had told me back then that I would write one day, I would have told them, "Are you kidding me? There's no way." But that was really my start of reading historical romance. I've always read it. I have branched out a little bit more as I've gotten older, but I always wanted to be a writer. That was what I planned to do when I left high school. And then I was writing some essay, I think my junior year in high school, and the teacher actually told me that my writing would never amount to anything. And I was crushed. That person, don't ask me what her name was. I only remember her as this blank face with blonde hair. I don't even remember her name. I was so devastated. And that actually changed my whole, I never went to college. I was going to go to college, never went to college, got married, had children, put that whole thing of being an author aside until about 20 some odd years. Well, yeah, I've been in California now for 14 years. So about 18 years ago, I was talking to somebody and they said, "Well, what's stopping you from writing it now?" And that's when I thought, well, what is stopping me from writing it now? My children, I had 3 children. They were mostly grown up by that point. So my responsibility as a mom, it's still there. It was still there, but I actually had time to finally take the time to write something. And so it took me probably 2.5, 3 years to muddle through making that first it was a Regency story. And I hadn't even finished that one before A Castle on a Hill and all these other characters started forming. And that turned into my self-published medieval romance. So in a way, the stories that I'm writing now, the Norwood Brothers and that whole series, they're going to be relations of my later characters in my other self-published books. So that's how I'm tying those all together.
Very cool. And I think we lost Evelyn, but we can probably finish up. I think we just have a little bit of time left. I did want to ask you a question. So you said that, so this is a medieval series that you're doing now.
Yes.
Has your Regency with Dragonblade just been with the Dragon Connected World? And how many books have you done in that series?
It's with the Lion's Den.
The Lion's Den. That's right.
It's the Lion's Den Connected World where the Black Widow of Whitehall has this, den. And actually, the one book came out last May. It's done very, very well.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I was really excited to write in that world. So I have another one coming out in April, and I'm signed up for 2 more. So
that's fantastic.
I love writing in that world. If you get a chance, I highly recommend.
I haven't. I keep meaning to, and I've read. I think I'm up to 9 or 10, but there's gosh, I don't even know how many books are in it now. It's so popular, and now I'm a little daunted because I feel like I'd have to go back, from the beginning and read. So read every single one.
Yeah.
And I have to find the time, but it seems she's back. It seems
we just
I forgot to make the disclaimer that you should keep going if something happens to the end.
Yes. Yeah, we are good. Yeah, I was just asking Sherry if she had written any Regency for Dragonblade aside from Lion's Den. And she's telling me she'd actually just has this one upcoming and then 2 more after that, which is amazing.
Yep.
Awesome.
And an anthology, but I can do anything with
Okay.
anthology. So I think I'm actually going to do a time travel because I asked Catherine if I could do a time travel, and she's like, yes, because I haven't written a time travel in a while, and those for me just fly onto the laptop. That really is my niche. I really do love writing those.
Fun. Well, ladies, it was a delight to talk to you. I appreciate your hanging in there through the technical stuff. And I will make sure that I put the links to the books in the comments so you can absolutely get them if you haven't gotten them already. Dragonblade books are the best deal on pre-order and release.
They are.
For sure.
Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Everybody have a nice night. Bye.
Yes. Have a good day.